Okay, so Fred, welcome to Mea Culpa. Got to start by asking you, obviously we're in unprecedented times. So with Trump's renewed promise to reshape the Defense Department, and I ask of you because you are retired military, 20 years. How do you see veterans playing a role, right? I mean, given the criticism of former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper during Trump's last term. I mean, do you foresee similar tensions between Donald Trump and the VA and veterans and so on? And how should this upcoming administration address veterans' voices within the department?
Well, that's going to be the challenge. We know two things already. We already know from experience what happened last time with Donald Trump. There was a lot of tension. I don't know if you know this, Michael, but he actually he forced the Department of Defense to actually have someone monitoring his Twitter feed in case they got military orders via tweet. Okay. So, for example, the transgender ban actually came out via tweet, and yet he fired Esper via tweet. So, it's going to be more of that. And of course, the Defense Department has a military service comes with certain rules. One of those big rules is we disobey unlawful orders. So there's going to be a tension when you've heard from the president. Just today, I saw Tom Homan say that they would like to use the military and special operations for raids on illegal immigrants. Okay, well, that's not their mission. I mean, believe it or not, it's not actually, we don't train our highest trained special operators to kick down apartment building doors and arrest people. So there's immediately a tension now. They haven't gotten to office yet, right? So I foresee some challenges for my peers. I've heard from peers who are still serving saying they're concerned about what's going to put them in, the tension is going to put them in. He's promised to fire generals that are woke. Good luck defining that. So that's going to be a problem. On the VA side, the Veterans Affairs side, I think we see a lot of problems there, a lot of tension. Project 2025 has got very explicit plans about changing the way we receive our health care, who can receive VA benefits and others. And it'll be interesting to see how the veterans community, which is about 16 million living veterans right now, with these huge veteran service organizations like American Legion and VFW, how they're going to react to that, to put that pressure on it. But I know amongst the peers I'm speaking to, I'm involved with Vote Vets. I host a show for Vote Vets. We're already talking to people saying, all right, how are we going to oppose some of these really, really bad plans?
Yeah, it's interesting because in 2016, when Donald won the 45th presidency, one of the things that he did, and it was at my recommendation, believe it or not, was the institution of bringing in David Shulkin to be the VA secretary. And I'll tell you a very quick story on it because I've known David Shulkin for, I don't know, well over 2 decades. And I had said to Donald, because they were looking for a secretary of the VA, I said, you should consider Dave Shulkin. He's right now the undersecretary of the VA under the Barack Obama administration. And Trump looked at me and he was like, "Are you fucking crazy? I'm not putting a Democrat into the office." He goes, he goes, "Think before you speak." And I said, Mr. Trump, I said, you do understand that he might be the undersecretary under Obama, but he is a lifelong registered Republican.
Right.
So he goes, he is? And I said, yes, sir, he is. So he goes, bring him in. I want to speak to him. You think that he'll follow my plans? So I said, you ask him yourself. You're a better reader of the room than I am. And so David Shulkin, by the way, was the only appointee who ended up getting all 100 votes. All. It was 100 to 0. Nobody else even came close. But the problem with David was that Trump also wanted to put some outsiders, people who have no experience in the U.S. military. The goal was to basically dismantle the entire medical apparatus, assuming one even really exists. I mean, the care is so terrible for our veterans, and then basically force any doctor who gets a phone call from a veteran within which to see that veteran within 24 hours of the phone call being made. And you get paid by the United States government, of course, through the VA program. To be honest with you, I thought it was an amazing idea, right? All of these doctors, many of them, are, especially say the psychiatrists, they get $1,000 an hour, right, to deal with PTSD and so on. Put them on the same program that you get, like Medicare, Medicaid, and so on, but they must see our veterans within 24 hours of the appointment, or see somebody in the office. One of the thoughts was that would help to prevent the horrific numbers of veteran suicide. Here's the thing. That plan never came to fruition. You see, that's what I'm more concerned about. It's not that some of his policies don't make sense. They actually do make sense. How about find people who are going to be able to actually implement them? Do we have any idea who's going to be the secretary of the VA now?
Yes, and on that note, the problem too is a lot of these plans just don't have reality in them. I mean, let's be honest. There just isn't enough mental health care providers in America to see somebody within 24 hours of any kind, no matter how much we throw money at them.
Sure there are.
And
Sure
so,
there are. Sure there are.
I disagree.
How many veterans do you think that there are out there? 19 million?
There's 16 million total veterans. A total of 9 million are in the VA healthcare system. Not all of us have mental health care issues,
and
but
not all. Not all of them need to see somebody within 24 hours. But if there is a substantial crisis, maybe that's what.
Yeah,
100,000
I think
a day.
systems in place. I mean, it's a lot of folks, and there's a shortage. But having said that, as far as who they're going to put in charge, today we saw Senator Markwayne Mullin floated. As also he was voted for another judge, I think Interior as well. So we haven't really seen the names for VA have been a little bit more. I haven't seen a lot of names for VA yet, except for Markwayne Mullin today. And then of course I heard backdoor rumors of Ronnie Jackson is actually being considered again now that he's a congressman coming over and being VA secretary. So that's another twist because he got turned down last time. He couldn't pass Senate. He couldn't get Senate passage because of his checkered past in the Navy. So it'll be interesting who they put in there. The fact is, though, I'm not gonna lie to Michael, that the VA has done well for the last 4 years. Under McDonough, they've had one secretary. One of the things I don't know if you remember, you were involved in it, but the Mar-a-Lago 3, right? A lot of people don't realize that Donald Trump put 3 of his buddies, including Ike Perlmutter, from Mar-a-Lago, as sort of an informal advisory group, which actually is illegal for the VA secretary. Shulkin and his successor, what's his freaking name? We're all reporting these 3 friends of Trump's. So there was a lot of skullduggery at VA, and that's all gone away in the last 4 years. I think a lot of us that deal with VA, both professionally and then for healthcare, I get benefits. I don't get healthcare because I'm a retired Army, but they're pretty happy, to be honest with you. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but overall, they've done a lot of good changes in the last year. One of those big ones is the PACT Act, which added another 1.1 million veterans to the benefits, over 700,000 to healthcare, and was implemented very well. So there's a lot of angst, I think, amongst even the people who voted for him. I think there's that, you've seen it, I'm sure, the people who's like, well, they're not going to support me and my friends, just the bad ones. But I think it's the same thing with veterans. A lot of veterans who don't get care at the VA realize it's actually pretty good, and don't realize that there's an opportunity for it to get destroyed. So, I mean, the stuff in Project 2025 is bad.
My hope, people are beginning to get, some people are getting angry at me because I'm trying to be hopeful, not optimistic, but I'm hopeful that Project 2025 is just like so many other things that have come onto Trump's desk, a complete and total waste of time, that there's no chance that they're going to be implementing, Project 25 to be the blueprint of America going forward, or the manifesto, so to speak. I have a gut feeling, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I actually know Trump. He does want a legacy, and not a legacy that's the manifesto of Trump 2025. I know Ike Perlmutter. I knew Ike very, very well. In fact, I sat in on 100 of those meetings initially between Ike and Dave Shulkin. Ike was there when Dave first came in order to have the meeting with Trump. And he turned around and he said to him, wow, you're a lifelong Republican? He goes, yes, sir. And I said to him, Mr. Trump, you want to hear something interesting too? David used to be the administrator of, I think it was like Hackensack Hospital in New Jersey. Do you remember when Amelia, his mother-in-law, burnt herself terribly on a pot of water that was boiled. I said, David was the one who took care of her at the hospital based on my call. I've known David, like I said, for well over 2 decades. He goes, David, you'll follow what I'm saying. And, I want to create an entire group of people that will be we'll call it a supervisory, group that will work with you. And they all have different expertise. Some of the things they wanted to do is to shut down some of the VA hospitals that are technically closed anyway, right? So why do you have all of this brand new equipment, MRIs, X-ray machines, sonograms, etc., right? The whole goal is send it off, ship it out of the country, sell it if you have to, or take old machinery that's no longer operational or needs so much repair and use this stuff because it's already paid for, right? Makes sense. But then again, who's in charge? And that was always the problem. Everybody thought that they were in charge, including David, who learned very early on that everything he wanted to accomplish, he had to then take to the committee, and then the committee, along with David, would then present it to Donald in bullet points to get it approved or not. And that is like that's like building the house before you build the foundation, right? I mean, you're going to then have to take the house down. Okay, great. Now we know what it's going to look like, but you got to have it sitting on a foundation. It didn't make any sense. I wanted to
and it caused a lot of problems for the staff. I mean, again, it's just less efficient. We can't run an organization like that,
No, you can't. It's not one as big and as important as our veterans. For God's sakes. I mean, these people, they put you, and thank you for your service. You put your ass on the line for our Constitution, right? For that document right there. You put it on the line so that we can engage here on Mea Culpa in these types of conversations. We can have, we could be critical of our leaders, of our president, and so on. Ask Donald whether he agrees with that. That's a whole nother story, right? But
that's the issue.
It's just one of the issues, right? So,
sure.
Look, one of Trump's campaign platforms included reforms to federal agencies and also limiting oversight on executive powers. That's exceptionally scary. Something I have talked about, not just here on Mea Culpa, but on my YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show. I talk about it all the time. Not my words, his words. He wants to rewrite the Constitution. He wants to dismantle our tripartite system of government, meaning get rid of the judicial branch and get rid of the legislative branch. That means there's no House, there's no Senate, right? It means that there's no Supreme Court. There's no courts at all. It becomes the court of Donald J. Trump. This is extremely dangerous. And to take all of their tripartite powers, the checks and balances, confer it onto the executive branch, namely the chief executive, which then in essence makes the president a king. So my question to you is, how do you interpret these proposals? And what specific areas, like the DOJ's independence, do you think that we as American citizens must keep an eye on?
I think you start A to Z, unfortunately. And that's kind of one of the things I've been saying, one of the things I've been urging on my followers and show is, they have a plan. He's already talking about, I don't know if you saw already, he's already talking about trying to skip the Senate confirmation process, or he's already making moves to defenestrate the power of the Senate and the House and make those moves already. And he'll do those in whatever way he can figure out. Again, I mean, going back to the beginning, I mean, the weird thing about being a soldier, I first signed up as 17 years old when I went to basic training at West Point. And I took that oath, and you take an oath to the Constitution. It's not to the president. It's not a loyalty. I joke a lot that, we had a whole damn revolution about this, right? That we got rid of the king, and so, and frankly, a Wellman's fought in that revolution. A Wellman actually did the crossing of the Delaware with Washington. This has been my family's business since before there was a country. And so for me, especially, it's incredibly disconcerting to hear the idea of an American president, an American politician saying he wants to, take apart those guardrails in the system that we have in place. It's not a perfect system. Nobody else in the world has an electoral college. There's a reason for that. But
Yeah.
having said that, it is extremely dangerous. We've seen the courts give him that power. Obviously, with the Roberts Court, this decision on immunity is very dangerous. And you know better than anybody. You could say this better than Mike. I've quoted you before, but that I always frame Trump as, and you could confirm this better than I can, is he's always been a guy who, he doesn't say what's the norms, traditions, or what the rules. He's always been a guy who says, what can I get away with? He uses laws as guidelines of how far he can go before he gets pulled back, right? And so that's one of the things that concerns me, is how much is this current batch of MAGA politicians who are in power, how much are they willing to give up their power for the future? What is the bet? I mean, he is a one-term president now, hopefully. How much are they willing to bet the House or the future Senate on giving into Donald Trump's powers, and how can he make those permanent? I remain like you, a little bit optimistic, oddly optimistic, because I'm a helicopter pilot. We're not optimistic people normally, but it is.
Yeah.
I don't think hey, they still have elections in Hungary, right? I don't think we're going to lose the power. We still have the power of public influence. We still have the power of local and state and up elections, which is coming up. So I'm of the belief we're going to have to figure these things out. We're going to have to figure out what are the priorities, and groups are going to have to put aside some of their differences now and say, look, we got to work together, on the issues. I give an example. About 3 months ago, we had a situation in Virginia where the state legislature or the Commonwealth legislature and the governor kind of, I don't know, colluded, but what they ended up doing was cutting a huge benefit to veterans in the state of Virginia, which allowed you, if you were 100% disabled or 90% above, your kids could go to state school for free, which is huge, right? You could go to, University of Virginia for free, essentially. And it was a very big benefit that caused a lot of veterans to retire in Virginia and serve there and live there. And they just quietly kind of phased it out. And it caused an uproar. And I was on a call after the election, and one of the women who fought that and won, by the way, she showed me a picture and she said, "Fred, look at this picture. This woman next to me is Republican. She's MAGA. We disagree on everything, But here they are in this protest group together with signs fighting this specific issue that was affecting our veterans and their families in a way that caused both sides to go, wait, we went too far, and roll back." So, and it gave me hope that day, that Thursday after the election, that, we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to figure out that we agree. Going back to my world, veterans and others, the work I do with vote vets, we're going to have to figure out that groups can disagree. That the guys who want to privatize VA don't want it to go too far, right? The folks who want our veterans to be taken care of don't want them to be in the poverty level. I mean, the changes they can make, Michael, are shocking. Like, there's a thing called concurrent receipt, which allows, if I'm fully disabled, 100% disabled, or 50% or higher, and I'm also military retired, I can get both. I get my military retirement and my disability, and that's a pretty good chunk of change for some folks. That's enough for a disabled person to live the rest of their life comfortably. But if they want to get rid of concurrent receipt, which means if you get disability rating, that lowers your retirement. I've seen numerous people online saying that will literally put me below the poverty level as a veteran, as a disabled veteran. 100% disabled
They also,
veteran.
by the way, Fred, they also talk about doing the same thing to a whole slew of government employees. I mean, there's a lot of government employees that are insanely nervous about what's going to happen.
They're calling me, Michael. They're calling me.
Yeah.
The ones who donated to Democrat. I mean, you saw that they've said it. He's already said he's going to implement Schedule F on day one. And they've said previously, he said on his, because don't forget, they had the Agenda 47 videos. It's just hard to watch. But
well, do me a favor before you just go past that. Tell my listeners, remind them what Schedule F is.
So Schedule F is in our current employment system for veterans, for government employees, the GS system we call it. You have certain protections, federal employee protections, and the goal is to provide a professional government employee class that is not beholden to the winds of politics. In other words, they work for any politician, any administration. You have supervisors over them who are called senior executive service, SESs, and then above them are the political appointees. Each administration gets about 4,000 political appointees that take over leadership of the government. Everybody below them, 2 million people, are part of the government service corps, and they have it's not just union protections, they have federal protections and rules. What Donald Trump wants to implement and did implement at the end of his last term is what's called Schedule F. And this is the idea that any federal employee is now an at-will employee, that they can be fired for cause, for any reason, not even with cause, they can just be fired. It basically destroys the entire modern bureaucratic system that we have. Now, bureaucracy is a dirty word, but it isn't when you're talking about scientists that have been there for 20 years, a military base. Everybody thinks the military runs their bases. No, we don't. It's a civilian from the local area who's been there for 20 years. He runs the sanitation department. He runs the hospital. It's not military people. We come and go for 2-3 years at a time. Most of the military is run by civilians. So the idea that Schedule F comes in and they could be fired for cause, even for the cause of they have a MAGA guy who wants the job, which is possible. You talk about a huge brain drain and a very dangerous change in our the way we employ people. The people running Project 2025 have said that they were supposed to be supposedly recruit several thousand people to take over right away. And they're looking for very specific jobs. So even people who are MAGA are going to lose their jobs. People who donated to Democrats are going to have their jobs looked at. There's some character who created an entire list of people they want to fire already. I mean, it's scary stuff. So to go from a professional, non-political government employment and government period to people like you're going to go to the IRS. You may get a person who's there for the very sole purpose of because they're MAGA, and they may or may not know dick about being an IRS agent, but they have the right politics. It's a scary change, and he's already said in a recent video he's going to implement that on day one. And so I think the price we'll pay as a country is people just don't get it. And then for veterans, by the way, veterans get special hiring. So we're talking thousands of veterans, hundreds of thousands of veterans work for the government. The VA is like some ridiculous, like 70% veterans. DOD is like 50% veterans. So when you talk about starting cutting, we're going to have a veterans unemployment problem again. It's just, second and third order effects, we call it in the military, right?
Yeah, I guess, right? Now, I wanted to sort of move on for a second because, we've heard Trump praise leaders in the past, autocratic leaders like Viktor Orban. You got Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Mohammed bin Salman, and he's promised closer relations with those countries, stating, in his opinion, and again, let me be very clear to my listeners, the guy got the plurality of the vote. His policies, whether you agree with them or not, his policies will be what they intend to do, right? That this would bring a new era of peace. And I think that if you think about it from a global perspective, yeah, who doesn't want a new era of peace? Whether it's Hungary, Russia. I mean, he claims that he's going to be able to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. In fact, he said that if he won the election, that he was going to put an end to that war 24 hours after he becomes president-elect. Okay. You think that these partnerships will actually reduce global conflict, or do you think that they risk alienating traditional allies? That's my concern. You don't shit on your allies, right, for the benefit of your adversaries.
Correct. And that's the real danger now, more than it was 4 years ago when he left office. NATO is stronger than it's ever been. We have 2 new members that said they'd never join NATO, but because of the Ukraine invasion, have joined NATO. NATO is doing its part. So the myth that NATO is not holding its end of the bargain. I mean, this is a guy who still thinks NATO is like a membership at his golf club where you pay dues. That's not what NATO is about. It's not a dues-paying organization. So he's constantly accusing people of not paying their part, but they are. It's very dangerous. And you can see our allies are nervous and they should be, because there's an existential threat. There is a real live existential threat to Europe from Russia at this moment because of the fact they invaded Ukraine. And so the idea of undermining our allies, undermining our partnerships is incredibly dangerous. Whether the idea will have peace because we, quote, get along with our enemies, I'm not sure that's ever fucking worked. I mean, what it means is your enemies understand what they can get away with, what they can't. There wasn't peace under Trump. The myth that there was no wars, there was peace under Trump is so silly. It's laughable unless if you're paying attention. Because I lost a whole bunch of friends. I mean, who were at peace apparently. 65 service members died under his.
So let's jump into that for a second, because this again is a weakness by the Democratic Party. All right, to which I'm basically a lifelong Democrat. This is a Jamie Harrison, DNC, Kamala Harris campaign issue, because when you hear Trump make the statements, under my administration, there was no war, and you hear MAGA and other, mainstream media as well as cable news outlets regurgitating the same misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and it's done 30, 40, 50 times an hour by 20, 30 different people. Ultimately, as Stalin would say, if you tell a lie enough times, the lie becomes the truth. That point was never ever contradicted by
I agree.
Kamala
I agree.
Harris. Lumen, it's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs, and it gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do, this is crazy, all you do is you breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for the day, and that's based on the measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts and your meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. Look, let me be clear about this. Who isn't looking for some advantage today to get the most out of the little time that we have to take care of ourselves? And this device is a game changer. And let me be clear, your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food that you eat into fuel that keeps you going. And because your metabolism is at the center of everything that your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. Lumen gives you the recommendations to improve your metabolic health. And if you're a female, it can also track your cycle, as well as the onset of menopause, and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts, so then you can keep up your energy and you can stave off cravings. So if you want to stay on track with your health this holiday season, go right now to lumen.me/Cohen to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/Cohen for 15% off your purchase. Lumen makes a perfect gift too. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode.
Not by official channels. I mean, for Kamala Harris, she had 100 days. So I don't think, so I'm hesitant to beat up on somebody who only had 100 days to run a campaign. I will kind of beat up Mr. Biden and the others who should have done it. I mean, this is our opponents. The Republicans spent $270 million just on anti-trans ads that never got answered. So there was sort of a blind spot, I think, on the Democratic side of understanding that these messages they were pounding were taking root and did matter. The idea there was no war should have been pushed back. It was ridiculous. They were. I think there was a collective guilt too for Biden and Vice President Harris about the withdrawal from Afghanistan because we lost 13 good men and women. But in the end, that happens. And I mean, war's rough, and they never talked about it enough. They just kind of let it go behind them, and they created an opening for Trump and the Republicans to exploit it. Again, there was this myth that they were better for peace. And I mean, he took out bin Salman, or he took out what's his name, in the Iranian general, right at the Baghdad airport, for God's sake, which ended up being getting our guys missiles.
Al-Baghdadi?
Yeah,
No,
the Ukraine. No, the Iranian general that we killed from the Iranian.
Soleimani.
So Soleimani, yeah, thank you, Soleimani. And so we killed Soleimani, and they retaliated by hitting our base with missiles, which caused a bunch of traumatic brain injuries. He blew that off. He still calls those little headaches. They're not little fucking headaches, okay? That's a really big deal. TBI is no joke. And I've got a lot of friends who can't live their lives because they have TBI, and TBI is more than a little headache, as Trump dismissed it. So that message was not effectively carried. I agree that we should have done a much better job of carrying the message that no, there was, we've done very well nationally. The world is a better place because we have allies, we have partners, on defending NATO, defending it. There were a lot of choices. I mean, again, I do fault a lot of it being a 100-day campaign just isn't enough, and President Biden had waited a long time to drop out, and he had not really campaigned on these issues. I don't know why. But yeah, there was a lot of messaging like that just went unanswered, and I think we paid a price for it. I do.
Yeah, and we most certainly did. What I find very interesting is Joe Biden coming out immediately after Trump's unprecedented win, calls him to congratulate him, and tells him that there is going to be a peaceful transfer of power. In fact, I believe that they already scheduled a date that Trump's transition team is due to go to the White House. In that way, they can help to make it an easy and a smooth transition. You see, that's the whole basis for our democratic republic. It's what really makes America America, that you have, as president of the United States, this enormous amount of power over everything. In essence, as Trump once said, the president is like the king. The only difference is it's based on 4-year terms with a maximum of 8-year kingship. Joe Biden did the exact opposite, because I don't have to tell you, Trump's previous transition faced a ton of
Oh yeah,
criticism for lacking any continuity or any communication at all. In fact, when Biden's team won and they called to see, hey, we'd like to come in, I think they basically told him, go fuck yourself in Macy's window,
they did.
because you're
No, they
not
no shit
welcome
did.
here.
Yeah,
No, no. You
no, they
show
no
up
shit did.
on the 20th, right after the inauguration. Everything will be cleaned out. I mean, what now?
Yep.
All of a sudden, you don't even have a pencil, right? So you're not sure what's there, what's not there. How do you assess this current transition period? I mean, are there any specific challenges that you anticipate from a governance perspective?
There's two answers to that, right? There's answer on the Biden side and the outgoing side. I have every faith that because of their adherence to norms and traditions and the right way to, they're going to do an outstanding transition to Trump. The question is, will the Trump people accept it? Because we had two transitions, right? Trump in the first time, that's when they threw out the pandemic playbook, for example, right? They were handed a functioning government and said, I mean, it has Obama on it. Let's just throw it out since it says Obama on it, right? So that transition in was a disaster in the sense that they were like sort of arrogant and the hubris that went into saying, now we can do it ourselves. Now, and then the outgoing one was a disaster because they said, yeah, they really did say, F you, we're not doing a transition. If you remember the government accounting office, the GAO, she resisted as long as she could. So a court order forced her to do a transition, insisting that the election wasn't settled yet, right? So there's very little transition going in. So that's also what gives credit. You had to give credit to the Biden administration running a pandemic and everything else that happened right after that turnover, because it was not a smooth transition. So I'll give President Biden credit for trying to make sure it's right this time for the good of the American people. It's also frustrating, obviously, because his norms, he really just thought if we could just be normal for a few years and it'd be fine. But you and I now know that's not how things work. You have to reset the boundary. And I get nervous because the boundaries never got reset. That a lot of folks learned the first Trump administration that they can get away with a whole lot of shit before they get in trouble with anybody. And that's now the norm. And so we have a government that's to take power, to include Stephen Miller again, who know what they can get away with. And now they've also got a compliant House and Senate probably, and even a Supreme Court. So it gives me a little cold chill down my neck to know that they understand what they can get away with. I think overall, because we have Biden and he's going to do it right, at least we'll have some solace in knowing it was transitioned as well as they could. But it matters who he puts in. The fact that he's asking for FBI to waive clearance background checks on staffers, the fact that he's asking the Senate to do recess appointments instead of regular appointments, that tells me he already knows that the clown show is such a bunch of fucking clowns that the normal process won't approve them. You know what I mean? It's like, I had a top secret clearance when I was in the Army. The idea they're going to put somebody in the White House with access to our secrets, it was bad enough when it was Jared, but some of these fucking people they're talking about, these guys are lunatics, and they're going to give them access to top secret, no foreign, NATO only type secrets. It's a scary thought. And I hope the FBI and everybody else holds fast, but there's not a history of them holding fast. So that's the stuff that makes me crazy. You thought it was bad that Trump had boxes and boxes of our secrets in his bathroom. Imagine just every asshole that works in the White House just throwing them in his backpack and going home every night. That's scary.
Or
That's
just taking
scary.
photos of them on their cell phones,
Right.
right?
Right. Take a
I
photos,
mean, you know,
text them
you
to
know,
their buddies, and not
yeah,
even find there, because the reason when you get a top secret clearance, you know this, you also go through the process of securing the secret. But it's not just they do your background check; they also train you. Before, it's called getting read on. I don't know if you know this, but when you get a clearance, when you are actually so just because I have a clearance doesn't mean you have access to classified information. Then you're read on, and the read on process is a whole training, what the laws are, what you can do, how to secure things. You can't just take a USB and stick it in a secret computer and then pull it out and put it in a not secret computer, and if they're just going to blow all that off and just, I fear for the ability of our enemies to get access to our secrets just because of a clown show rushing to take power. And that's the kind of stuff that keeps an old soldier up at night.
yeah. And listen, and you have every right to. Funny that he ended up even deciding that he was going to make Marco Rubio. Um, I mean, right, Secretary of State.
I,
This is a
I know.
guy who he called low IQ, dumb as a stump, corrupt. He attacked him for using government credit cards, using his campaign to pay for his flights and for a trip to Vegas, and all this stuff. I remember that 2016 ad. I remember when it first came out, literally because I saw it, in advance, and we coordinated that ad with the National Enquirer front page story on Marco Rubio, naked with a bunch of guys in a swimming pool having some form of like a cocaine sex bash, right? I mean, imagine somebody does that to you, and now all of a sudden you're willing to let bygones be bygones, and I'm going to make this guy who I call dumb as a stump, I'm going to make him Secretary of State. I think that's absolutely astonishing, which, by the way, gives me some comfort. Maybe there's a chance Donald will call me up, apologize for throwing me under the bus, apologize for refusing, right, and for listening to a bunch of these assholes that are still currently around him, right, tossing me under the bus, and then doing it a second time. Maybe he'll call me up and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
Mike, I know you love Italy a lot. Maybe you want to be the ambassador to Italy. What do you think?" And by the way, I'll never say sorry, but accept this gesture as my goodwill to making amends for fucking your life upside down 6 times back to sunset. I mean, I can't believe it's like the Ted Cruz is the same thing. You see some of the behavior. It's so vitriolic. It's so unpresidential. Again, trying to be hopeful only because we all have no choice. There is no choice but to be hopeful. None of us have the crystal ball as to what he's going to do. I'll tell you what I do know, based upon my experience with him, which spanned a decade and a half. A lot of these people that are around him, I don't believe will end up remaining, simply because the second that either you overshadow him in something, that's a problem. If he asks you to do something and you know fundamentally that it is improper, and you say, hey, we shouldn't really be doing this, you could kiss your ass goodbye, like what happened with Reince Priebus, right? Or Sean Spicer. I knew Sean Spicer was never going to do it. Notice one thing: everybody so far in this administration that has been chosen looks the part. Donald Trump would call that central casting, right? Whether it's this guy, Homan, who's a former New York police officer, right? Big ass guy, right?
Yeah.
With shoulders that probably
Yeah.
like span 60 inches. You put him in charge
Yep.
of the deportation, and, I mean,
Yep.
they all look the part.
That's his thing. And we take solace knowing none of them are going to last more than a year or two. I mean, that's the air part. It's like there's going to be a lot of political careers that end up being derailed by this as much. We can joke about it, but 40 or 44 last time, didn't endorse him this time because they got fired at some point. As you know, Barnaby, every run's afoul with Donald Trump eventually. It's just a matter of time. So the churn, it's funny to see so many people going into it thinking they'll be different this time, especially a Marco
Yeah.
Rubio. I mean, how does Marco Rubio not see the handwriting on the wall? that he's no longer be a senator. He's going to last maybe a year in this job at best. He's going to get fired by Truth Post or whatever. Was it worth it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a strange thing. So few survived, right? So I don't know, more power to him. But you're right. I live in this real world where I wouldn't trust him, and I wouldn't trust him for anything. And I doubt you're going to get that call to be an ambassador, maybe unless Italy has like one of our gulags in it.
Yeah, right.
So
Exactly.
unless we put a camp there, that's the only way you're not going to see Italy.
What can you say? A guy can only dream, right? So look, another issue. Yeah, exactly. I love Italy, and who knows? Maybe they say, "Get the hell out of the country." Right? We're going to kick you out of here, and as
Find
part of the apology
yep.
for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So look, we also know that Trump, over the course of the last, 50 years, has always had a contentious history with the media, right, and media outlets. And thanks to Donald Trump, he's done this. There are many Americans that distrust mainstream reporting. I can't tell you the number of like Upper East Side assholes here that turn around and say, "Oh, come on, you believe that?" Dude, it's the New York Times. Fuck the New York Times. They're anti-Trump. I'm like, well, how about the Washington Post? Anti-Trump. How about the Wall Street Journal? They hate him, right? And you go on. And I'm like, well, how about OAN? They're like, well, who's that? Well, that's that right-wing media outlet. What if they acknowledge it? Then would you agree? They're like, no, I don't believe anything that any of these journalists, everybody's got an agenda. This is what he's really managed to pull out. My question to you is, how should media organizations adapt their reporting to ensure fair coverage while effectively countering misinformation? Because that's something we saw big time during this campaign. The extent of Russia's interference in this campaign with the misinformation, with the bots and the bot farms and so on, has been unprecedented. What the fuck is somebody to do?
I wish I had that magic. I wish I could answer that question. I mean, we are seeing more and more that we lost this election and our democracy in a lot of ways because of the misinformation, disinformation. The fact that distrust of any kind of media has become so pervasive. By the same token, I think the media organizations themselves have to recognize that their reputation has been damaged. I mean, the Washington Post paid a heavy price for not endorsing, and I know they're going to get that back. There is a distrust on both sides because a lot of people on the left feel like they've been playing. The refs have played the media so long that they are leaning towards Trump just to prevent themselves from being attacked and being otherwise. And so they're going to have to be very, very smart and judicious in how they cover it. And they're going to have to. That doesn't mean, I think the frustration a lot of us has and is some facts are just not neutral. If somebody's a crook, he's a crook. Calling somebody a convicted felon is true. It's not being against them. It's a fact, right? In this case with Trump and others. So it's going to be very challenging for them. The other thing I think to see is on the other side, on the left, they're going to have to do things like talk to people like you and me, go on our shows. The thing is, you can say one thing about the right. You've seen a lot of people on the left saying, well, we need our own Joe Rogan. No, we have tons of great shows and podcasts. You're on the Midas Network with me. There's a ton of great creators right here on this network. They sent 200 creators to the DNC, but good luck saying, hey, can I talk to Biden? Can I talk to Vice President Harris? Can I talk to Governor Walz? No, they didn't go any because they looked down on these shows, right? So where Trump was going around the country, people forget he didn't just do Joe Rogan for 3 hours. He did all the freaking right-leaning podcasts.
He did all of them, like the Boys
he did all of them. He did all of them. There wasn't one too small, right?
It's true.
And on the left, I look, man, I begged the White House, especially 2 years ago when we started blowing up on the Midas test. We were like 1.5 million. I know that we all like, come see us. I'll never forget. I should tell the story. I actually called them up for like Veterans Day or Memorial Day. I said, I think it was Memorial Day. I said, I got a crazy request. Give me the president to talk for 5-10 minutes about Memorial Day. He lost a son indirectly to service. If you believe that Bo may have gotten his cancer from serving in Iraq and the poisons that we breathed in.
Yeah, the burn pits. I'm 100%
the burn pits,
certain.
right? If you believe Bo got this weird cancer, which a lot of people do. I have so many bosses of weird cancers. We could talk about no better than a guy who's lost soldiers, who is 100% disabled veteran, has a son who's a veteran. I mean, we have more in common. Joe Biden was the first Blue Star. We call them Blue Star dads. In other words, he sent a son to war. He's the first president to send a son to war since Eisenhower. I mean, let's have that conversation. Not a lot. And they said, oh, no. Yeah. And they gave me the deputy spokesman for the National Security Council, who wasn't even a veteran. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? It's
So
like
it's funny that you bring up.
there's this disconnect. It's like,
It's funny that you bring up. It was called Creators for Kamala. Is the group at the
yes,
DNC that you're talking about?
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
tell you how fucked up the people that ran
Now
this.
be nice. I was one of
Harris.
them.
No. Yeah, that's not. You get nothing but the truth here on Mea Culpa. But I can't tell you how
I'll push
fucked
back.
up the people are over at the Kamala Harris campaign. The people that ran it, they were running an old school Democratic playbook. The same that you saw from Obama, the same that you saw under Clinton, the same that you saw for years. It's the same playbook. Now compare that to Donald Trump, who doesn't even have a playbook. Everything shoots from the hip. I want to turn around. I want to talk about Haitians, migrants eating your cats and your dogs. And then on the next one, he adds geese in it too, because he probably drove past a pond in the park and saw that there was some geese in there. So he throws that in. And we all know that it's not true. We know that it's fucking ridiculous, right? But yet, it just keeps, again, being regurgitated over and over and over again. Do you know how hard it was for me, despite the fact like Mea Culpa has hundreds of millions of downloads since I started? I have Midas Touch now has about 3.2 million subscribers. On my new YouTube channel, I have like 220,000, subscribers in a period of like
giant numbers. Yeah.
2.5, 3, going on 3 months. I have just millions of people that subscribe and follow. I couldn't get a ticket. I only was able to get a ticket by calling a friend of mine who's a member of Congress who said, I'll give you one of ours. I'll take it away from somebody else. I'll give you one of ours. And that's how I ended up going. And the funniest thing, when I was there, their Creators for Kamala, nobody gave a shit. They're all in the back area. They're doing their podcasts. They're doing their TV shows and stuff. I walk into there. The fucking media attacked me. And I'm not the one saying it. CNN, actually, started running the whole thing. Holy shit. It's like I was treated like a fucking rock star. I couldn't get a fucking ticket from them. Why? Because they're running the same old playbook. Now go ahead and you take somebody like Donald Trump, who goes ahead, and this is his superpower. He's able to read a room. You could say whatever you want about some of the crazy, vitriolic, hateful rhetoric that he will spew, but then he ends up getting people like Elon Musk, like Dana White, UFC president, and they become vocal for his campaign. In fact, what they do is they give them talking points, and everybody's on the same fucking message. Fred Wellman is not talking on Monday about anything different than what Kamala's talking about. Michael Cohen is not talking about anything different than what Fred's talking about or what Kamala is. And then start adding 100 people down that line. With the Trump campaign, every single person, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the way through the end of the week, including weekends, everyone's talking about the same exact thing. You don't deviate based upon the question that's asked of you. If Trump wants to today talk about, I don't know, drill baby drill, and they ask you, what are you going to do regarding the economy? How are you going to, bring jobs back to the United States and so on, considering X, Y, and Z? Drill baby drill. And that's all everybody keeps on. It's all going to be about oil. It's all going to be about being energy independent. It's all going to be about
tariffs.
being that right. And the moderator then turns on, or the journalist says, well, we actually are, for the first time in U.S. history, energy independent, where we have a surplus that's being sold to foreign countries. Drill, baby, drill. Donald Trump's and they don't get off message. So all you keep hearing is the same message over and over and over again. We, the Democrats, had no message that was unified. And that was demonstrated when you have people like Trump going on Dana White's program, going on the
Right.
Boys podcast, going on
Right.
whatever it may be.
Right.
Modern diet makes it really difficult to keep things in balance. I mean, extra sugar, it's just found in so many foods. And no matter how hard I try, I'm just not eating as much fiber as I want to. While getting enough fiber is a challenge in itself. By drinking sugar to fiber every day, your microbiome gets more of what it needs and less of what it doesn't, which leads to a more balanced microbiome, and that's the key to a healthy gut. One stick pack of sugar to fiber will help you get a daily dose of fiber from the foods that you've already eaten. So here's what I do. Every day, I simply put a pack of sugar to fiber in my water bottle. I mean, you can't even tell that it's in there. And I love knowing that I'm supporting my gut health with this routine. Sugar to fiber, it's the newest product from Z-Biotics. They also have, get a load of this, they also have a pre-alcohol probiotic that's available to purchase to help with rough mornings after drinking. So go right now to zbiotics.com/Mea Culpa and use code Mea Culpa at checkout for 15% off any Z-Biotics probiotic. Z-Biotics has a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. And thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode. And today's episode is actually brought to you by Ollie. It's clean, fresh nutrition that your dog need in 5 flavors that they're going to absolutely flip over. I mean, you don't have to be a veterinary nutritionist to know that feeding your dog real, whole foods with minimal processing, it's one of the best choices that you can make for their health. A perfectly portioned, whole fresh food diet has been proven to extend your pup's life by 2.5 years. You hear that? 2.5 years. And who doesn't want more time with their best friend? With absolutely no harmful fillers, no preservatives, Ollie, it's made in U.S. kitchens with ingredients carefully sourced from trusted growers and producers around the world. Because the time between Ollie's gentle cooking and your dog chowing down is minimal, they don't need preservatives to extend the shelf life. I mean, with 5 protein-first recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes, fresh turkey with blueberries, or fresh lamb with cranberries, you might start thinking, damn, my dog eats better than I do. And you know what? That's probably true when it comes to Ollie. So look, here's how it works. I told my neighbor, go out and you fill an Ollie's 30-second quiz, and then they'll create a customized meal plan that's based on your pup's weight, the activity level, and other health information. Ollie then crunches the numbers, and they recommend the right recipes and daily portions for your precious pup based on hundreds of thousands of real dog results. And get a load of this. For the first timers, Ollie will send out your pup's first box with 2 weeks worth of meals and a guide on how to gradually switch them over to their new diet. Ollie offers 3 meal plans to choose from so that you can choose from between a full fresh plan, fresh topper plan, or a mixed plan with their freshly baked recipes for your special fur baby. I mean, they also have treats and supplements. I mean, you think that you're talking about a person. You're not. You're talking about your favorite animal. You're talking about your pup. Ollie's biggest sale of the year is here. So listen to this one. For a limited time, you get 70% off. 70% off your first box, plus a free bowl and a storage container. So head right now to Ollie.com, fill in your dog's details, and use code Cohen to get the lowest price of the year on a personalized meal plan. And this offer ends December 6th, so act now. Head over to Ollie, that's OLLIE.com, and enter code Cohen to get 70% off your first box. Again, you can get 70% off your first box, plus the free bowl and storage container. So head to Ollie.com, fill in your dog's details, and use code Cohen to get the lowest price of the year on the personalized meal plan for your pup. Go now. Their
Right.
influence, all of them combined, steered policies, steered conversation like social media regulation or sports funding. It spoke to things that the average American doesn't give two shits about. Do you care about sports funding? I don't. I don't. And my kid is constantly on, one of these programs betting on the Knicks or the Rangers or the Yankees, whatever it might be. That to me is how people were able to connect with him. That they said, say whatever you want. But I remember hearing him on Joe Rogan. I remember, listening to Elon Musk talking about this with Dana White, blah, blah, blah. He created a fraternity, sorority in MAGA. That's what they are.
I have a hard time arguing with you, and as one of those creators who went there as an independent media guy, and that's my approach to what we do. I'm not doing selfie videos, right? I'm trying to actually interview people. I mean, I had to stalk Media Row myself to get elected. I never got I got Abigail Spanberger, I got Jared Moskowitz because I called favors in, but actually requesting through the people who invited us to be there to get actual interviews with real movers and shakers. They had no interest in that whatsoever, and so it was extremely frustrating to say. It was great to be there and I appreciated it, but then to bring us there and then ignore the opportunity to speak to our audiences directly, it's just again, there's a fundamental lack of understanding on the left, I think, right now of how the media market has changed. And you can do all the MSNBC hits in the world you want to do. It's not going to reach the people you need to vote. It just isn't, it certainly isn't going to change any minds. Even Fox, I mean, they're just not there. They are, like you said, they are Dana White's podcast. It's not just Joe Rogan. I think that's the other thing that's making me mad too, is everybody's reading that wrong. It's like, oh, well, it's Joe Rogan and it's, call me daddy. There's, like you said, there's millions of us out here producing hundreds of thousands of views. I did a show on January 6th,
but he's producing 100 million views. That's the difference.
Exactly. Massive
that's the difference. Audience. Yeah.
Right.
And they completely understood the social media aspect, but yet they ignored it.
I think you're right.
Were you in that back room all the way off to the left with the other creators?
Not much. No, I didn't go back there much because it got there's some great folks there. I wanted to report on being there. So I spent most of my time in the media section or on the floor up in the stands watching the actual events unfold. So I didn't hang out much. I was there to report and I got some pretty good interviews. I mean, like I said, I did, but it was a knife fight to do that. I'm not going to lie to you. I had to work real hard to grab politicians in the hallway and set up my camera, do interviews in the hallway. And I think it was a missed opportunity for them. I understood why you wanted to have us there. But to leave us on our own to come up with our own messaging and interviews, it was a missed opportunity. And like you said, it's hard to sit back and realize that all that time Trump spent grinding away, doing all those ridiculous podcasts worked. I think that's a big part of what happened, and it's what we focused on, networks and big hits. And I think communications, I'm an old baseball guy. I love baseball. I'm here in St. Louis, the Cardinals. And I think communications in 2024 is a small ball game. If you're trying to get a message out, you've got to be hitting single. It's not. They all used to come to me and say, "What's like? Let's look at the example." She went on the Call Me Daddy or Call Her Daddy. Great, that's a great hit. Is it a home run? Maybe. So you got one home run, but in a game like the Yankees where they're not going to 9,
and don't call it a home run. Singles and doubles win ball games. That's
exactly. Lots and lots of them. Baseball. That's it. Small ball. It's small ball.
It is small
and they
ball.
try. They're constantly trying to get the home run. It's like it's small ball. You got to do lots and lots of them. You should have sat in an interview. They could do what we're doing. We're on StreamYard right now, right? That's the app we use. Yep. You could sit the vice president in a room for 4 hours and knock out probably 20 interviews. Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. You really could. We could record. I dial in for 15 minutes, do my show, 15 minutes back out. We're not asking questions she can't pull out of her ass. It's just that's the small ball. You got to do that. It's grinding. It's grinding.
Singles and doubles win ball games.
It is. It is. I mean, we just saw it in the World Series. So, well,
Yeah.
this was a weird one because the Dodgers are hitting balls right and left. So are the Yankees. But you're right. And I think that was my frustration is they're constantly, and that also goes to the short campaign to defend them. They only had 100 days. But if we had a longer campaign, I'm hoping the next cycle, which starts next year because we have Virginia, New Jersey, we've got Supreme Court races in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and we have 30 states with local elections next year, 2025. So I'm hoping the lesson learned is, look, you got to grind it out. You can't just hope for that one big MSNBC hit, that one big Fox hit. You've got to grind it out and talk to people like you and me who have audiences. I did a show on January 6th, Michael, on Midas Touch. You know, it got 900,000 views on one episode. It's like, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people who are hearing and seeing the messaging they should hear. And I do believe that our friends on the Democratic side missed that opportunity. I really do. You know,
Yeah,
really
me too.
I did a series. I did interviews with the candidates, man. They did great. I mean, I interviewed Colin already, got like 800,000 views. Those are big numbers for any candidate. I couldn't do enough of those interviews. I ran out of time. But so that gives me hope, by the way, just that I was getting contacted by campaigns. Hey, can we do an interview? Can we do an interview? And we did it. But man, you're right. They're going to have to change the way they see the information environment starting like right now.
Oh, you could say that again. So look, the hour goes by very, very quickly here on Mea Culpa.
Yeah.
I want to ask just this last question, right? With the increase in polarization amongst the citizenry, what advice, and we'll stay with veterans on this question, what advice would you offer veterans and active duty personnel who want to voice their dissent in a way that's both impactful and constructive? Because we've seen Trump have past disputes with generals, with veterans, right, over policy directions. What advice would you give them?
To put aside politics and focus on the issue we're dealing with, the idea that some of our sisters and brothers are going to be brought below the poverty level to save a few bucks shouldn't be a partisan issue. So we're going to have to find ways to put aside a lot of our differences on things and figure out ways to focus on what matters to you and your community. The example is that one in Virginia where the idea of cutting this wonderful education benefit that brought so many to Virginia because it's just too expensive. That brought the parties together. So we're going to have to figure out how to work with each other in the next 4 years. We do know that, and you know better than anybody, Donald Trump is susceptible to public pressure, that we still are a political country, and he's still a publicity hog. He doesn't like negative publicity. He really doesn't. And so there is a possibility if we band together. So find local groups, start at the local level, find organizations like Vote Vets or Common Defense or Veterans for Responsible Leadership who are going to lead these fights to roll back some of these worst instincts and these worst policies that could get rolled out and put the pressure on them to fight back. And we're going to have to figure out how to work together on these things. We're going to have to say, yeah, I disagree on X, Y, and Z, but man, A is huge for us. The idea that our Gold Star widows are going to suffer because this policy should be unacceptable to all of us, you know, and so we're going to have to agree on some facts and then find ways to work together. I said my dream is just to be able to sit at a football game and talk about fucking football, you know, and so, but we do face some very, very dangerous times as far as what our military is for. I mean, again, the idea of using our most highly skilled special operators who should be doing things that we don't know about, right? Let's be honest. Most of the things Navy SEALs do and most things our Green Berets do in countries you've never heard of aren't things we know about. And that's the way it's supposed to be. To pull them off those missions to raid apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado should bother all of us, right? It's not a use. And that does make America in an existential way less safe. So no matter how much you think of these illegal immigrants, we have larger threats overseas who really do pose an existential threat to our country, more than just some illegals in an apartment complex. So I hope we'll push back.
Yeah. So let me be clear about something. I believe that the very first bill that Donald Trump will put out there, whether it's by executive order or not, I believe the very first act of his presidency will be mass deportation. First of all, I think he believes that it's easy. I think he believes it's much easier than what it may actually be.
I agree.
But I don't see it as the way he's describing it. And again, I know Trump and I know his management style and so on. If he can get a win from half a policy he's happy about that, as long as it's something he could talk about every single day when he goes on television and so on. So what he'll end up doing is he'll go after the low-hanging fruit. He'll go after the migrants that are, for example, in hotels, right?
Right.
And they'll just
Already in the database.
right, or
Already in the database. That's
but
right.
they're
Easy to find.
They're also in a location that they absolutely know, and they know their schedules and so on. So 6 o'clock in the morning, they'll park 30 buses there. They know exactly how many people are there. Your bus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. Send them to an airport. Elon Musk will have already bought a whole bunch of used 757s. Mexico, San Salvador. You're going to Ecuador. You're going to Peru. You're going to here. You're going to there. And they're just going to turn around and fly them in. And while they're flying that direction to land, now you have the State Department on the phone with the country of original origin saying, listen, we're bringing your people back. Plain and simple. All right? Plain and simple. That's what he's going to do. And he's going to declare that as a major victory. Do I think they're going to go after the people who have children that are born here, the DACA and so on? I think they may try to come up with some sort of a game plan to do it, but I don't think that's going to be the initial hit. I think it's going to be the million five of these illegal immigrants that have come over the border over the course of the last, we'll call it 16 to 18 months. I think they're the low-hanging fruit for him, and it will 100% be declared as a victory for him.
Yeah,
and that's what he looks for.
That's what I've been telling people all the time is you have to understand how bureaucracy works. It is a bureaucracy. If he says he wants 1 million people deported by X date, that's not going to be if you look at the bad guys one at a time. You're going to open a database and you're going to scoop everybody up, and that's going to be the people who are trying to do the right thing or applied for asylum. It's going to be, that's what bothers me is I saw this in foreign countries. I served in Iraq. I know what life's like under an authoritarian regime, and they just scoop people up. But I also think that at some point it's going to break the economy, as you know. Well, I mean, these people are contributing to our society where nobody wants to admit it or not, but they are doing things and that we can't fill. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the short term. But yeah, I think you're right. He is, but that goes back to what we agreed on, right? He is susceptible to public pressure. He is, if he can notch a W, if it's a half W, he doesn't care. He'll boast it to make it a full W, right? He'll make it a W plus 2. It doesn't matter. He just needs a little one, right? I mean, his magic power is the littlest victory is a monstrous victory, And so I hope, like you, I guess you're right. It's hopeful because I have to be hopeful because it's our country at stake. That's all we can do.
Optimism, and that's a whole second thing. Fred, let me thank you for joining me on Mea Culpa.
Thanks, man. Good seeing you.
Hope to have you back real soon, brother.
I look forward to it, brother. Hang in there, man. Keep up the fight.
Yeah, I'm trying. Thank you.